Yesterday on January 19th, the NBA hosted their Paris game here in 2023. And I want to talk about that game a little bit and what the NBA can do to also replicate what the NFL does, what the MLB did a little bit. I know, right? Like the NBA replicating something the MLB did. But yeah, the NBA had their Paris game yesterday that featured the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. It was played at 3 o'clock here, at least on the East Coast, obviously 12 o'clock over there on the West Coast. For me personally, I was at my desk job. I couldn't watch the game, unfortunately, at this time, and I was really excited for it. And I think the NBA needs to possibly market it in a way that this game can somehow be played on a weekend. I know there's other things going on in France or wherever this game could be played at, but I think if just having it on a weekend like a Saturday or Sunday could mean a big deal for the NBA. And there's also a 6-hour time difference, so you really can't have this game at 7 o'clock here on the East Coast because the game is not going to be played at 1 in the morning over there in Paris. And I love how the NBA is expanding. This was their second international game this year. There was a game earlier in the season in Mexico City that featured the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs. The Heat won 111-101. I just also would love to know why the NBA chose the Pistons. I know there's been the rivalry in the past. You had Michael Jordan, you had the Bad Boys Pistons. These teams have their enriched history. I just was thinking, like, when the schedule makers were coming out with this, and unless maybe France really wanted to see these two teams because of their legacies and their rivalry together, why choose them? The Bulls were, met with higher expectations than the Pistons this season. Everybody thought, okay, they're going to be at least in the playoff conversation. They still are, at least in the play-in tournament right now. They've had their ups and downs this year. But the Pistons, man, I mean, maybe there were some people out there that thought their young core could take the next step. And I know that there were people out there that thought that. I wasn't one of them. I did not think that they were going to really sniff the play-in tournament, and they are one of the worst teams in the league with a 12-36 record. And then once you make the schedule, you can't change it. So I'm sure the NBA wasn't too thrilled with the Pistons maybe not being this good this year. They didn't know that Cade Cunningham was going to get hurt. But you know what? It was cool to see Killian Hayes play in his home country in France. And this was the first time that the NBA has played in France since 2020 before COVID. And the NFL does have their yearly games where they play in now Frankfurt, Germany. They play in London. It's usually the Jaguars that play there in London. And it's usually this big thing every year. You wake up at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. You get to watch football before at least 1 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm using those times. And I think the NBA should try to do something like that where it's more of a spectacle, right? Like, you want to sit down with your friends, like, we got to watch this game. And it makes me think how the NBA could maybe try to incorporate an international game into their midseason tournament. For one, I don't really agree with the midseason tournament. I don't think it's going to make a lot of sense. Maybe these players are going to try to win to get that monetary incentive, maybe for a charity, maybe for the players on the bottom of the roster that are maybe just making the league minimum and might not be in the league in a few years. Because this should have been a bigger deal. Watching an NBA game in Paris, it's completely different. You have a whole new environment. But just having it be at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, a lot of NBA fans, at least here on in America, can't really watch that game just because it's like the times where people are at school, people are in work. So I think there should be a way where they can move these games to the weekend and then, yeah, maybe incorporate the midseason tournament. Now, the MLB, the reason I brought them up before is they aren't doing it this year, but they've done it the last 2 years. They're Field of Dreams games, right? Like, they're in Iowa, they're in the cornfields. It's really cool. The Yankees-White Sox game there a couple years ago was amazing. This year was similar to this. It was like the Reds and the Cubs. Both teams weren't as good. But if the NBA were able to do something like that, like, imagine having just a scenic park in, I don't know, like, I don't know, some European country, right? I'm not going to single one out. Or maybe you had something in Australia, not going to happen. Or maybe it's in South America. Or maybe it's just even in America. Maybe it's at Rucker Park. Who knows? I think the NBA could have something cool like that also in their arsenal as well. Like an outdoor game. I'm sure these players would do that. They do it in college on the carrier as well. Like, NBA should really try to do this. Have a new environment. It's a one game where everyone's like, all right, I want to see them play in that outdoor court. Or I want to see them play, like, right on the water. It'd be cool to watch. And, like, the game really wasn't too competitive. Like, Bojan Bogdanovic continued his solid season. He had 25 points in this game. Saddiq Bey had 16. Jaden Ivey had 16. Killian Hayes really did struggle, which sucks to see, because if there's one player that you wanted to ball out in this Paris game, it was Killian. Zach LaVine had a game-high 30 points. He's been playing very well over the last 2 months. DeMar DeRozan had 26. Vucevic had 16 as well. But yeah, like, the NBA has dipped their foot into the Paris games, the Mexico games. They want to go to, I believe, Saudi Arabia, have some games over there. They want to have their preseason games in Africa. It would be cool. I mean, like, travel logistics really make this difficult, and with an 82 game season, there's really not a lot of time you can waste in between these days. Like the NFL, you have a week to travel. The NBA, you really don't. Like the Pistons and Knicks had to play at, what was it, like 3 o'clock on Sunday so they can make this game, and then the Knicks had to play it back to back. It really gets confusing with the schedules, and NBA teams hate back to backs already. But if there was a way to like incorporate a new environment into the midseason tournament, I think that would make it a little bit more special. Like say you called it the global tournament, and you maybe had like each team play a qualifying game in Africa or in Paris or in Mexico City or in Germany or somebody like that or somewhere like that. I think that would be really cool to have it mean something and make it be this whole spectacle instead of just being, all right, another midseason tournament. Maybe it's going to mean something. Maybe it's not. I don't know if anyone's going to want to watch a finals between the Bulls and the Timberwolves if that's the outcome. But hey, maybe if there was some really good games and some new cool environments, I think people would be more interested in watching these games. So I think the NBA has something really good going for them. And I think just expanding this game, it's what David Stern wanted. It'd be really cool if they could play more and more international games throughout the regular season. And they've already scheduled their Paris games in 2024. And I think next year you should really try to have like 2 of the biggest French names in the NBA play in Paris. I know the Minnesota Timberwolves aren't like one of the more exciting teams, or at least as one of the more popular teams in the league, but you just had Detroit there. So I think having Rudy Gobert play in Paris would be really cool. And then I think whatever team Victor Wembanyama gets drafted to, you have Wemby versus Gobert in Paris. I feel like that'd be really entertaining as well. Hopefully he's on a fun team, because you can also have him, say he's on Charlotte, you could have Wemby versus Gobert, France center versus France center, and then you can have Anthony Edwards versus LaMelo Ball, the guys that went at each other in the 2021 Rookie of the Year race. I just think that'd be a really interesting way to have a little bit more eyes on this game next year. Or you could just say F it and throw like the Golden State Warriors or the LA Lakers there as well, or maybe you want to do like Boston and New York or Boston and Philly, or you could just have some of the best international players play there, like have Dallas and Luka go, have Giannis and Milwaukee go. Make it a big deal. Maybe announce the All-Star starters right before the game or something, because that's coming out next Thursday. Why not just time those up? Because then everybody's tuning into TNT to look at the All-Star starters. Well, I'm sure Shams is going to spoil it before, and then boom, everybody can lead right into the Paris game. I don't know, it's just an idea. Let me know what you guys think down below. And with kind of the COVID restrictions around the world easing up, we should be able to see more of these games again, because we haven't in a few years, and it's really cool to see. So yeah, that is my idea. You can let me know if you agree with it or disagree with it in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion here talking about how the NBA can make these games be more exciting, make it feel like that big international feel that everybody wants to tune in. Maybe it's just picking better teams to play in these games. Maybe it's having a better time slot. Like maybe you have this game at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, but it's really, 4 p.m. In Paris or something like that, rather than it being at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, when most of your fan base really can't even tune into the game because they're at school or at work. Well, I guess a lot of people are getting out of school, but that's just on the East Coast. What about Central, Mountain, Pacific time? People play sports after school. It's really tough to catch this game, especially if you're a Pistons or a Bulls fan. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. Drop a like if you guys do enjoy these discussion style videos, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.